Hi, I'm Rhett Crabtree, and this is another 5-minute theology video. Today, keeping a clear conscience. In a previous video, we discussed gray area issues, defining them as subjects the Bible does not offer clear instruction on. We also highlighted that because Christians will come to different convictions on these issues, the result may spell trouble. Today, we talk about a different kind of trouble that's born out of gray area issues, namely, a troubled conscience. The Bible instructs us as Christians to maintain a clear conscience, but the problem is, we don't. There's a number of reasons for this. Our consciences are fragile things, and the devil likes to burden us with false guilt. Also, there are agitators in our lives, people who use shame tactics to trouble our consciences. I'm thinking here of the visit of great Aunt Gladys, who walks in the door and witnessing little Billy and Jimmy playing a game of Old Maid, gasps and says, "What? A deck of cards? Why, I thought this was a Christian home." But despite the unfortunate assaults of the devil and his handmaiden Aunt Gladys, the big question is, how can I keep a clear conscience before the Lord when it comes to my convictions on gray area issues? How can I know that I'm doing right in these issues and I'm not actually stumbling into sin? Well, I want to offer you 4 diagnostic tools, all that come in the form of questions, that might help you. The first is the question of the stumbling brother. One way to assess the rightness of your position on gray area issues is to consider whether that position leads others to sin. If it does, it highlights one of 2 things. Either your position's flawed or your use of your position is flawed. I once heard some girls talking about an upcoming dance, and the one said to the other, "Well, I'm a Christian. I don't go to dances." And the other girl responded, "But I'm a Christian too. I love dances. Don't be silly. Don't be stupid. Come with me to the dance." Now, do you spot the problem with that? The problem is that they both had settled convictions on this gray area issue, but the dancing Christian called the non-dancing Christian's convictions stupid and silly. She shouldn't have done that. But here's what's worse. When she urged the non-dancer to come to the dance anyway, she was encouraging someone to violate her conscience before God. In a word, she was actually inducing that other girl to sin. James 4:17, "Whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin." And this is why Paul warns us in 1 Corinthians 8 and verse 9, "Take care that this right of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak." If your convictions on gray area issues encourage others to sin, there's a problem. But a second diagnostic question is lawfulness versus helpfulness. When it comes to gray area issues, the question is never one of lawfulness. They're all lawful, but, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 10, all things are lawful, but not all are helpful. In other words, to maintain a clear conscience, it's important that we assess whether or not a practice or a habit is advantageous, and specifically advantageous to other people. Hence, in the very next verse, 1 Corinthians 10:23, Paul says, "Let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor." By the way, the application here is not necessarily spiritual, as it was with the previous point we made, but the application here concerns my neighbor's welfare generally. To illustrate the point, no, God doesn't command me to paint my house. It's not a question of legality at all. But it is a question of my neighbor's good, and that should have the same binding effect upon me as a Christian that the law would have. I should paint my house, and I should paint it if for no other reason than if I don't, it'll hinder my neighbor's property value, and that will not be for his good. Third diagnostic question is honesty. Honesty. When it comes to our gray area decisions and the behavior that's born out of them, not only do we need to look outward and see how it impacts others, but we also have to look inward. And as we look inward, we have to be honest. We have to listen to the Holy Spirit. Is the Holy Spirit convicting me that this thing I'm doing is error? If so, I'd better pay attention, even if it concerns something that I didn't realize was wrong previously, even if it concerns something that I really enjoy and I don't actually want to give up. And I'd better listen to the Holy Spirit because I've been called to walk with the Lord. And can 2 walk together except they be agreed? The question here is, are you in agreement with the leading of the Holy Spirit when it comes to these gray area matters? No, for the record, I'm not advocating some sort of overly introspective, navel-gazing, mystical nonsense here. I'm simply referencing what the Lord has already told you about the Holy Spirit, that He will guide you in all truth, and He'll do it even in the grayest of issues. A final diagnostic question is the question of spiritual pride, and this one might be the most neglected diagnostic tool of the whole bunch. But what is at question is this: if our convictions on gray area issues have turned us into spiritual snobs, then our convictions are dead wrong. This is especially true if we have the tendency to be prohibitionists on gray area issues. We don't drink, smoke, dance, or chew, and we don't run with the girls who do. But of course, all the Lutherans around the corner do all of those things, and until they impose upon themselves all of my extra biblical prohibitions that I've imposed upon myself, they'll never rise to my level of godliness. May I say to you, there's greater danger in that kind of mentality than you'll ever find dancing with tobacco-chewing Lutheran girls. Why? Because the self-righteous Pharisee, who's assured of his own moral superiority and who prays to himself, Lord, I thank you that I'm not like all these other scumbags, that man never goes down to his house justified. Well, I'm Rhett Crabtree, and we've been discussing today the importance of keeping a clear conscience, especially as it relates to gray area issues. I hope this has been helpful to you. God bless you.